The question lingers in the air: are we truly living in the end times? Anyone who watches the news and sees earthquakes, wars, religious persecution, and even the growing tensions with Iran feels deep down that something far greater is unfolding. Biblical prophecies are not symbolic texts lost in old scrolls. They are being fulfilled before our eyes in real time. And still, many continue to live as if nothing is happening. The curious thing is that the more intense the signs become, the more distracted the human heart seems to be. The return of Jesus is not an event for the distant future. It's a reality drawing closer, step by step, like lightning flashing across the sky before we even hear the thunder. It's no surprise that in many parts of the world there's a silent awakening. People are starting to ask, are we really ready? That's where the urgency comes in. Not only to understand what's coming, but also what's already happening. The truth is, the signs of the end are no longer subtle. They're screaming. We live in an era where the superficial is the norm and the eternal has become a footnote. But that shouldn't surprise us. From the beginning, Scripture made it clear that in the last days, love would grow cold and people would trade truth for comfort. Curiously, this is being fulfilled even in religious circles. Indifference has become the new normal. But there's a promise amid the chaos. Those who are alert to the signs of revelation will not be caught off guard. And those who recognize the signs also know where to find the answers. That's why, before looking toward the future, we need to look to the past, more specifically to the historical context that shaped these prophecies. Understanding where it all began is the first step to grasping where it's all going to end. And speaking of that, to truly understand biblical prophecies, we need to take a step back to the time when the Roman Empire was the dominant power and the Jewish people lived under political and religious oppression. It was in this setting of chaos, injustice, and messianic expectation that the words of Jesus began to thunder. He spoke of a future that seemed impossible, of an imminent destruction, of birth pains coming upon the earth. And the most amazing thing? He was describing what we're only now beginning to see clearly, 2,000 years later. That historical backdrop is like a map. If you don't know where you've been, you won't understand where you're going. The relationship between nations at that time is essential for us to understand the signs of the end. For instance, the tension between Jews and Romans was a ticking time bomb. It's not much different from today's global dynamics between world powers like the US, Russia, China, and Iran. The ancient world lived in a state of constant pre-war tension, much like what we see in today's headlines. This historical comparison shows us that patterns repeat, and that's where prophecy gains power, because it's not locked in the past, but unfolds in cycles. When Jesus spoke about the end times, many thought he was exaggerating or merely speaking symbolically, but time proved otherwise. Historical records, like those of Flavius Josephus regarding the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, confirm chilling details of what Christ predicted. This forces us to stop and reflect. If what he said about that time was fulfilled so precisely, why would we doubt that the rest will also come to pass? And if it will, in fact, if it's already happening, then it's worth paying closer attention to what he said in Matthew. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus sits with his disciples and delivers one of the most powerful speeches in all of Scripture. He doesn't speak in complicated codes, but with a clarity that is almost unsettling. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. And who hasn't heard that in today's headlines? He speaks of famines, plagues, and earthquakes in various places. All these are signs of the end, not coincidences, fulfillments. When Iran tests missiles, when nations rise against nations, when pandemics sweep the globe, it's as if every event is shouting, Matthew 24 is happening now. What's striking is that Jesus doesn't only predict physical and geopolitical events, he also speaks of spiritual ones. He warns about love growing cold, false prophets deceiving many, and apostasy spreading. You look around and see packed churches but empty hearts, watered down faith, watered down gospel, and the scariest part, it's all become normal. But for those who know biblical prophecy, it's no surprise. It's exactly how he said it would be. What seems strange is in fact expected. The problem is that few are paying attention. And amid all this, Jesus says something powerful, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. That changes everything. It's not just a list of tragic predictions. It's a call to resilience, to unwavering faith. It's a call for those who want to stay alert, not afraid, because understanding what's happening around us strengthens us on the inside. And anyone paying attention to Matthew will soon notice that Mark also has a lot to say, especially about the difficult times to come. When Mark records what Jesus said about the last days, he's not just repeating Matthew, he's expanding the focus. In Mark 13, the tone is sharp, almost like a military warning. Jesus speaks firmly, "Be on guard, stay alert, for you do not know when the time will come." It's like he's saying, hey, don't fall asleep. The scene includes religious deception, natural disasters, intense persecution, and the preaching of the gospel before the end. These are all signs of the apocalypse and align perfectly with today's headlines. The depth of Mark's prophecy lies in the emphasis on deception. Jesus warns that many will come in his name saying, "I am he." And how many religious voices today promise healing, blessing, and instant salvation while completely distorting the original message? This is more than a spiritual danger, it's a literal fulfillment of prophecy. When the world turns to generic spirituality and modern-day gurus, it's a sign that the end is near. The real challenge is discerning truth amidst all the noise. What's even more impressive is how Mark connects physical signs with social ones. While the earth groans with disasters, humanity is rotting from within. Wars, famine, technology dominating human interaction, all of it echoes Jesus' words. And that brings us to the question, if the signs are being fulfilled so accurately, what are we still waiting for to wake up? Maybe it's time to look to Luke as well, who brings out details the other Gospels don't. And those details are crucial. Luke, with his detailed and sensitive writing, highlights nuances that make all the difference in understanding the signs of the end. In chapter 21, he emphasizes cosmic signs: the sun darkened, the moon not giving light, stars falling from the sky, imagery that seems straight out of an apocalyptic movie but is presented by the Bible as part of the final scene. These cosmic prophecies are powerful symbols of the coming judgment and have been associated in our time with natural phenomena and even space events that intrigue both scientists and lay people. But Luke goes beyond celestial drama and highlights human suffering. Persecution, imprisonment, family divisions, betrayals. He paints a picture where faith will be tested to the limit, and true followers of Jesus will need courage not to stray from the path, even if it costs everything. Think of real-life examples like those in conflict zones, facing persecution daily for their faith. For them, biblical prophecies are not theory, they're painful reality. Luke also shows that these times will be marked by the spread of the gospel, but not in a peaceful, comfortable way. It will be a growth accompanied by resistance, struggles, and suffering. For those living in places where the gospel hasn't yet reached, understanding these words is a call to value and protect this spiritual heritage. Thus, Luke's narrative directly connects to the return of Jesus, because it is in the midst of these tribulations that the final end will be announced. The destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 is a historic milestone that echoes as one of the first major signs of the fulfillment of biblical prophecy concerning the end times. When the Roman army, led by Titus, surrounded the city, no one could imagine the devastating impact. Jerusalem's temple, the heart of Jewish faith was destroyed, leaving an entire people without their spiritual center. This event was not just political, it was a prophetic sign Jesus had already predicted, showing the seriousness and accuracy of his words. This episode shows us that prophecies are not just abstract, they have real, tangible, and lasting consequences. The impact of that destruction reverberated for centuries, shaping not only Jewish history, but also the expansion of Christianity. Moreover, it serves as a reminder that the signs of revelation can manifest suddenly and violently, serving as a warning for today's world as wars and political tensions remind us of that turbulent past. For anyone studying the return of Jesus, the destruction of Jerusalem is a foundational reference point. Understanding what happened in 70 AD helps us see how history fits into prophecy and why certain signs repeat throughout the ages. It's as if the past is a mirror for the present, and reflecting on it is essential before diving into the signs in the sky and on the earth. When we talk about the signs of the end, we can't ignore the heavens and the earth, which seem to be announcing the arrival of the apocalypse in their own language. Extreme weather events like massive storms, unprecedented droughts, and powerful earthquakes are becoming more frequent and impactful. These natural manifestations, which the Bible mentions as part of the signs, are like visible codes for those who know how to read them. Additionally, cosmic phenomena, eclipses, meteor showers, and even the darkening of the sun and moon evoke the exact imagery described in Luke and other prophets. It's worth remembering that these signs are not mere coincidences, but a divine language speaking to the human heart, calling us to repentance and awareness. For instance, anyone who's witnessed a sudden violent storm knows how unpredictable and powerful nature can be. It's a perfect metaphor for the difficult days ahead, which will require not only faith, but wisdom and preparation. In the face of these signs, humanity has two options: to shut its eyes or open its heart to the truth. Though these signs may seem frightening, they also carry a message of hope. After all, they are clear evidence that God's plan is unfolding and that the return of Jesus is near. But to see that, it takes more than a superficial glance. It requires connecting the events of heaven and earth to the biblical prophecies we discussed earlier. And so, the journey leads us to the next theme: the wars and conflicts spreading throughout the world. It's impossible to talk about the signs of the end without mentioning the wars and conflicts that seem never-ending. These clashes between nations, like the recent tensions involving Iran, are a faithful reflection of the words Jesus left us about the end times. Wars, rumors of wars, unstable alliances and constant threats, these form a chaotic landscape that has inspired fear, but also a sense of urgency. For those paying attention, it's clear. Humanity is at a crucial crossroads, and these conflicts are above all a wake-up call. What's even more intriguing is that these wars aren't just happening between countries, but inside the human heart as well. Discord, envy, hatred, and division reflect the same turbulent spirit that shakes the geopolitical structures. That's why, while political leaders debate treaties, many live in inner wars, without peace. This parallel helps us understand that the signs of revelation aren't only external, they reach deeply into each person. The question remains, how do we keep our faith in the midst of chaos? There's more. Today's conflicts also bring a disturbing innovation: the use of technology in warfare and espionage on a scale never seen before. Satellites, drones, cyber weapons, all of it creates a landscape that aligns with prophecies about the technological advances in the last days. Anyone who wants to be prepared for the return of Jesus needs to understand that these wars are part of the puzzle, and behind the headlines, a greater plan is unfolding. One of the most striking aspects of the end-time signs is the increase in religious persecution, which is no longer confined to distant countries. It's happening close to home. The Bible warned that, in the end times, true followers of the faith would suffer for their beliefs, and this is becoming reality, with frequent reports of Christians being persecuted, imprisoned, and even killed for their faith. Iran, for example, has been the stage for many such stories, proving that biblical prophecy is not abstract. It lives in the flesh of real people. Beyond physical suffering, there's spiritual persecution, often subtle yet equally dangerous. The spread of false doctrines, religious relativism, and cultural pressure to abandon core beliefs are forms of oppression that test each person's faith. Understanding this is crucial for anyone seeking to stay alert to the message of revelation. It's vital to be firm, prepared, and aware of the invisible battles we fight daily. That's why reflecting on persecution is also a call to practical solidarity. If you know someone going through this, why not seek real ways to help? Through prayer, material aid, or even sharing their stories, small actions can strengthen those facing these challenges. After all, faith isn't just to be kept, it's meant to be lived and shared, especially in the difficult times that prophecy warns about. In recent times, we've witnessed economic and technological shifts that seem directly tied to the signs of the end, as predicted in biblical prophecy. Growing financial instability, global economic crises, rising social inequality, and the emergence of a system increasingly controlled by a few reflect the apocalyptic scenario many prophets warned about. Imagine a global system of goods and money control, something that may seem distant but is much closer than it appears. In the tech world, the speed of innovations like artificial intelligence, digital surveillance, and cryptocurrencies has sparked critical debates about privacy and social control. This evolution fits perfectly into the context of the end times, where the world will be monitored and regulated in unprecedented ways. For example, the growing use of digital identification systems already raises serious questions about freedom and submission, topics that appear heavily in the Book of Revelation. Rather than fearing these transformations, it's important to stay informed so as not to be caught off guard. Understanding economic and technological signs is not just a matter of faith, it's also about practical wisdom. Learning more about personal finances, digital security, and emerging technologies can be a vital step to navigate these turbulent times with clarity and hope. And through all of this, we begin to see that the gospel continues to reach hearts, even amid rapid change. It's amazing how, even in the face of end-time signs and global chaos, the gospel continues to advance, reaching even the most remote places on earth. Biblical prophecy states that before Jesus returns, the good news will be preached throughout the entire world. Today, with the internet, radio, television, and dedicated missionaries, this is becoming a tangible reality. People who had never heard of Jesus are now receiving the message of salvation, even in nations facing severe persecution like Iran. This spread of the gospel is a light in the darkness, a clear sign that God's plan is unfolding, even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. For those watching world events, recognizing this growth is a reminder of hope and encouragement. For example, missionary organizations that use technology to bring the Bible to indigenous languages and inaccessible regions show that the message of Christ has never been so alive and dynamic. Moreover, this global expansion of the gospel is laying the spiritual foundation that will support the faithful in the final trials. It's an invitation for everyone to reflect, what can I do to be part of this mission? How can I help share this urgent truth? And that brings us to the central point of the narrative, the return of Christ himself. The promise of Jesus' return is the heartbeat of the Christian faith, the climax of all biblical prophecy, and the hope that sustains those who live through turbulent times. It's not just a future event, it's a reality that shapes how every believer lives today. Jesus himself made it clear that his return would be unexpected, like a thief in the night, reinforcing the need for constant vigilance and unshakable faith. This uncertainty shouldn't paralyze us, but awaken us to the urgency of living with purpose and readiness. Additionally, Christ's return will bring complete justice and restoration, ending the cycle of pain, war, and suffering that marks the end of days. For those who have followed the signs, recognized the fulfillment of prophecy, and remained faithful, it will be the moment of final victory. It's like waiting for an arrival that will forever change the course of humanity, bringing peace, love, and harmony that go beyond human understanding. But until that moment comes, there is a great responsibility to live with integrity, love others, and spread the truth of the gospel. Preparing the heart, doing good, and remaining steadfast in faith are actions that cannot be postponed. With every new sign, the call becomes more urgent, and that leads us to the final stage of our journey, the final reflection and the call to action. We've reached a crucial point in this reflection. Understanding the signs of the end and biblical prophecy is more than an intellectual exercise. It's an invitation to deep transformation. We live in a time when the world seems to be collapsing amid wars, tensions with Iran, technological advancement, and spiritual crises. In the face of all this, the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? Are you ready for the return of Jesus that draws near? It's time to wake up and act. It's not enough to simply observe the events around you. You must align your heart with the truth that transcends the visible. Practicing faith daily, loving radically, and pursuing spiritual growth are essential steps to navigate these uncertain times. Moreover, staying alert to the signs and maintaining a posture of watchfulness and hope are critical. Knowing that revelation is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a new era. And here is the final invitation. Are you ready to live with purpose, to share this message, and to become an active part of this divine plan? Think about it. After all, true preparation for the end times isn't just about what happens outside, but what happens inside each of us. And if, along this journey, you've realized that your faith no longer burns like it used to, if God's silence scared you, or if the weight of spiritual routine wore you down, I wrote something for you. My ebook, When the Fire Goes Out, is a guide to rekindle your faith, hear God amid chaos, and rediscover your purpose even when everything seems to be falling apart. Click the link in the description and get your copy now. This might be the step you've been needing, not just to change how you understand the end times, but how you live until He returns. And so, the journey of understanding continues, always moving, always in search of the light.